Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today we have Dr. Donese Worden with us. Donese is a physician, researcher, and global health educator. She bridges science and spirituality and is renowned for identifying and helping bring unique modalities and therapies from abroad to the United States, putting her on the vanguard of integrated medicine. Dr. Worden teaches courses, seminars, and retreats to educate, empower, and enlighten. Donese, it's so great to have you on the show.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. It'll be lots of fun. Whenever we met through business meetings, we said, okay, there's a lot deeper conversation that you and I can have. So from Stephan to Donese, we'll do some good work here for everybody.
Yes. And I'll tell you, it's been such a gift having you in my life, and you've really made a big impact. Why don't we first start off by letting our listener know how you ended up going from functional medicine to spirituality and how you bridge those two worlds, because in some ways they kind of are diametrically opposed, allopathic medicine and then the woo-woo stuff. And yet they go hand in hand, in my opinion.
Correct. So, as a naturopathic medical doctor, I'm licensed in both systems of medicine. So allopathic, pharmaceutical, surgery, that kind of thing. But from day one of medical school for me 20 years ago, and beyond, is that I was learning the importance of environmental medicine, being licensed in traditional Chinese medicine, in homeopathy, in clinical nutrition, in mind body, which is counseling. So it was always important from the beginning, but even within the scope of a naturopathic medical doctor, spirituality was the word or the thing that you just didn't quite talk about, even though it was underlying there. But it was always important to me. And from day one on my intake, which is that first paperwork that a new patient fills out, or a client, if they're not, in Arizona, is that I ask, do you have a spiritual connection? And I'm not asking about religion. I'm asking, do they feel connected to something outside themselves? And 20 years ago, people didn't quite know how to answer, or they were a little more reluctant to talk about. Nowadays, people are so ready to talk about it and say, yes, I understand that this is important. And I'll have people that will say, I do my rosary every day, or I pray every day. And I said, but that wasn't my question. My question is, do you feel connected? Do you really feel that sense of peace and connection to whatever your belief system is? Not for me to tell you what your belief is, but do you feel connected? And it's surprising the number of people that still really have a hard time with that. And they cry and say, well, I'm doing all the right things by the book, but I don't feel connected. And I let them know the importance of that in their physical and mental health, how that affects that.
And how does it affect that?
100%. You can't, if you want to be 100% holistically whole, we got to be able to get to this place where the body can heal itself, because your own pharmacy is far stronger, better. There's no side effects. It's the right dosage. What we make in our body is the best medicine, the best pharmacy in the world. It can't make that, and it won't make that if we're running from the bear, which means we're in survival mode, we're under stress because we're not in a peaceful mode, or we're in fear and anxiety. And a lot of those emotions come from not having a deep spiritual connection. So when we can tap into that, whatever's going on in your life that could throw you for a loop into a stress response, as long as you have the ability to have a practice that can get you back to that moment of breath, peacefulness, it's all okay. It allows the body to do its own self-healing. Now, that doesn't mean I don't get out my prescription pad once in a while. There's time for an injection. There's time for supplements. There's time for those things. But in general, a lot of things are Band-Aids. We want the body to heal. We've got to feel, we can't live in fear and anxiety, and we've got to be able to feel peace. And that's coming from a spiritual connection. You can sit on a counseling couch for years. And remember, I'm licensed in counseling. That can be good. That can give you tools that can help that. But unless you've gotten to the point you really, really feel connected, I find that people can't get to 100% physical, emotional, and mental health without it.
Do you have an example? You can anonymize it, of course, of a patient or a client who had a big breakthrough because they got plugged back in to that connection.
Right. Or plugged in for the first time. But what
Yeah.
came to mind when you said that, I had this contractor, this young male. He was probably 35, had a young family, big guy, works out, tough guy, runs his crews. He came and was having panic attacks, anxiety attacks. And he said, Dr. Worden, you've helped me before with so many things. I trust you. I'm here. And I said, well, are you ready to go someplace with me that you may not have been able to go? Because he said, can't you just give me a pill to take care of this? I said, well, it might take the edge off, but it's not going to take care of it. What's causing is where we've got to go. So I asked him, I said, will you do some breathing with me? Just do a breathing exercise with me. And I took him through one that I do. You imagine the breath coming in through the bottom of your feet, out through your heart, top of your head, out through your heart, and in through your heart and out through your heart. So we're breathing, we're slowing down. I'm having him visualize. And I thought, well, at least I can give him just a moment of peace. But when we stopped that exercise, he was literally in tears and said, I have never felt so peaceful in my life. I didn't even know it existed. So that allowed him to feel for a moment what tapping into this kind of energy or this kind of process of being connected could do for him. That changed his life. It wasn't a shot. It wasn't a pill. It wasn't a supplement that I could give him. Yes, I can support him with many things. But to fix the root of the problem, if you keep going back and you ask, well, why do I have this? Well, why did that symptom come? Well, why did it? If you keep going back, there's always an emotional component attached to all disease. Even if you broke your leg, there's an emotion attached there. But until you attack that or look at that, we're missing a big piece of medicine. And how do we address that? It's really through not being afraid of finding a spiritual connection, whatever that may be.
One thing that surprised me, I just learned this year, is that all disease has an emotional root.
Sure. Well, and I will say, and I won't say a root, and here's why. If you're in a car accident and you break a bone, I'm not sure it was an emotion that caused that to happen, that bone break, but there is an emotion now attached to the fear, the pain, all that attached to that break that needs to be addressed so the bone can heal properly. But there is an emotion attached to all physical cancer patients, which I see a lot of. I work a lot in oncology. There's fear, not just anxiety, but an underlying deep fear with facing death. And we have to go there with that. We have to work on that for them to, even all the wonderful metabolic cancer therapies. I just got off the phone a minute ago with an oncologist, top oncologist from a San Francisco group and a mutual patient of ours. And, with those guys, I can't bring in necessarily so much the spiritual connection. We're working on the physical, even though it's metabolic, it's unique, it's different. We're analyzing what we need to do in processes, but the patient has already had, or in this instance, a client, because she's not a patient, she lives outside of state, but she's already made that connection with me. She already trusts me. She knows me. And when we're on the same page, we're able to bring the oncologist in. And by the end of, having a conversation of an hour with them, by the end, they trust me because they know I know my science. They know I'm not going to put something that will interfere with any treatment that the patient has chosen with them with conventional care. I understand the world, it will not interfere, and I can make it synergistic. And they trust me by the end. So we set that stage, the patient and I, for the oncologist to learn and trust the recommendations that I'm making. I work with some of the leading oncologists at MD Anderson, work with researchers at City of Hope, and they're open to it. They just don't discuss it. But we're bringing it to the table because I've got that kind of connection with my client or patient.
Okay, got it. And let's say that the patient or client has a pretty extreme fear of death.
Right.
I know I did up
Sure.
until my spiritual awakening. So what would be a way that you would address that for somebody who is, let's say, agnostic?
Right. So I let them know that, what we have found by the statistics, and not just the statistics in general, but in my patient population, and those cancer patients, no matter what stage they're in, stage 4 terminal, you've got 2 weeks to live. There's always a survivor. There's always someone who beat the odds, call it spontaneous remission, call it whatever you want. But there's always somebody. But what they all have in common is that they are no longer afraid of cancer, and they're no longer afraid of death, because they have such a connection to something outside of themselves. They have felt it, they know it, and they know that they will always have that, whether their physical body is here or not. Once they get to that point, the fear is gone, the anxiety can come and go, it can, but that deep underlying fear of death releases and lets go. And there's not even agnostic patients. I say, maybe it's breath, maybe it's feeling. I said, but as long as you're only connecting to you, and that's your only belief system, the best healer I know is you connecting with a source outside of yourself, just to give you the peace that you need for the body to do the repair and the healing. It's running from the bear. The autonomic nervous system has 2 arms. One is sympathetic. That is made for us to run in survival mode to survive a bear attack. We should only be in that when there's a bear, maybe once a month. We ran, we got up into the tree, and we survived, or we didn't. The other side of that nervous system is the parasympathetic. Guess what happens over here? Sleep, digestion, intimacy, sex, and DNA repair, detox, all the things that allow the body to heal and activate its own pharmacy is over here. So if you're in stress and running from the mode, that's going to stop that process. And in the metabolic cancer world, where I sit with those therapies, we know there's 2 pathways that feed cancer. One of those is sugar, thus the ketogenic diet, all the repurposed drugs that we use, all kinds of things to block that pathway. But the other is glutamate. So we're working on those pathways. But what's interesting is if the patient is in a stress response all the time, we can have them in a ketogenic state, doing the diet, doing everything that we know to do, but yet they're still dumping glucose. Their glucose is still high. Well, why is that? Because the body is being told, I'm in stress, I'm in alarm, I need to run from the bear, and it will pull glycogen from the muscles, even though you didn't need it. It's there, we have to have it. It's our fuel, it's not a bad guy, but it will pull it from the muscles and dump it in the bloodstream. So the metabolic cancer therapy researchers and those of us doctors that work in this, we know stress is a huge piece of this, and educating the patient in that is a big piece. I can do all hyperbaric oxygen, we can do all the wonderful things that we know of right now for treatments in conjunction or by themselves, in conjunction with traditional medicine, or do them by themselves if they've either been told you're done, we've done everything we can do, or they say, I'm not going down that path. But we have to teach that stress is a big piece of getting better or not getting better.
Yeah. Now, if you could recommend a book or some sort of resource that would help somebody who has fear of death, one book that I recommended and actually bought for a family member who's dealing with cancer now, I got Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. Great book. That's right.
There are so many great books out there. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself and all that. But here's the thing. It's not really one book. I know by the end of my first visit with somebody where their mental and spiritual self is. I know, are they at this level? Are they ready to start doing some deep breathing meditation work like Joe Dispenza's? Is that where I need to tell them is the next step for them? Or are they a novice? They're a born again Christian and they say, I can't even listen to the relaxing music because that sounds evil to me. Right? It's different to them. Or they say, I could never do meditation or yoga because it goes against my religion. I have to go down a different path with them and what I recommend. But by the end, I know the steps and I know where I can take them to get them. Maybe it's just breathing exercises, learning to relax. Maybe it is traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, sitting on the couch and learning how to do journaling, things like that, that allow them at least a peaceful state. So it's not a one book or a one treatment fits all ever. You've got to take the person where it is. And I think one of the best examples is like with music. Music can change the mood in a heartbeat for a patient, in a heartbeat. Can bring them joy. It can calm them down. Non-invasive, it's great. But the studies show this, and I've seen this just in patients with a lot of anxiety. If I tell them, go listen to this really relaxing piece of music, 60 beats per minute, it slows the heart rate down, it gets the brain wave to be more coherent, slows it down, so everything starts slowing down. Well, if it's too far apart, they're up here in this land, their brain is doing this, and I ask them to listen to that deep, relaxing, slow music, they can't take it. Makes them worse. Schizophrenics in a psychotic state, you cannot play relaxing music for. Makes them worse. You got to start with something upbeat that their brain kind of matches it, and then you can start tailoring down that music into getting them into a relaxed state. So we always have to remember, where's the belief system in the moment? Where's their anxiety in the moment, and tailor everything to that patient in that moment without judgment. I know what could get them better, but I may not be able to tell them that in the first visit.
Yeah,
because they're not ready to hear it.
That makes total sense. It reminds me of what I learned from Neil Strauss about calibrating, right? Neil Strauss, who was the expert at pickup, picking up women. So if you fail to calibrate, then you break rapport, and it's all over. So calibrating is
that's right.
It's a skill for life, for all relationships. Calibrating allows you to build that rapport and relatedness and get them to listen and trust and be open. So there is one book that I'm curious about. I just learned about it. I haven't read it yet, but it's called Reflections on the Existence of God. Do you know anything about this book? Is it something that you would recommend for somebody who is kind of on the fence and needs some reassurance that there actually is something beyond?
Yeah, I haven't read it either, so that's hard for me to comment on. But I will tell you, Neil Donald Walsh's Conversation with God, and Neil is the real deal. He is just a beautiful, wonderful person. That conversation with God has been kind of a bridge for those that are in Christianity, that really believe in Christianity. They want to say God, they believe God. They don't want to say any other words. It's offensive to them to say spirit or anything else. That was a kind of a good book, because it still is. It's one of the, besides the Bible, I believe, still the number one most bought book worldwide. So Conversations with God is allowing that you can say people pray to God, but they never hear God back. And then it's okay to think that you can get a message. It's okay to think that God, in that sense, spirit, that you can get messages and that it's all right. And it just gives permission. I recommend so many different things from a behavioral standpoint and a spiritual standpoint, but it's getting to know the person sitting in front of me or on a Zoom meeting like this, getting to know them and asking questions to understand their current belief system. And more importantly, not what do they currently believe, but is it working for them? Do they feel connected? Or are they just doing it because their parents believe that? Right.
Right. And also look for the openings. Right. So look for the openings where they might be receptive to.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. To
an
invitation.
That in medicine. That's right. It's just like in medicine, the new doctor's offices, just under the insurance model, they put a plaque up that says only bring one condition today. If you have two things bothering you, you have to make another appointment. Well, good grief. That's why I'm cash pay. That's why I spend 2 hours at least on the first visit, because everything is connected. Every symptom they're having, mental, emotional, and physical, they're all connected. And unless you look at the whole, you can only give a Band-Aid, and you're pretty much turning off the fire alarm and leaving the fire going in the body until you really understand the root of what's causing all of it. Many times that leads back to a spiritual issue or a non-connect, there's the way I'd say it, but they may not be ready for that message. I may need to help them get ready physically, get them better physically, emotionally, mentally. What she's doing. Trust her. I'm better. I'm better. Then we broach the subject of the true root of the problem. So you do it too early, you could lose patients. You've got to be willing to not judge, take them where they're at, and give them steps to breathing. James Nestor, which James is a good friend of mine. His book Breathe, great place to start. It's fun to read. People get to know, hey, breathing is going to be important for me to relax and what it does to my physical body and my mental. They go, I feel that. Now they're ready maybe to make the next leap is a spiritual connection.
Yeah, got it. Let's talk about the book Breath by James Nestor. So that book is a game-changing book for a lot of people. I have not read it yet, but my wife Orion is reading it and she's loving it. And I know that Joe Polish, mutual friend of ours, loves that book and is raving about it, and a lot of other people, right? So I'm curious, what would be the 1, 2, or 3 biggest takeaways about that book, since James and you think very highly of his work?
Yes, James and I met 3 years ago at a thought leader. We had a big company fly us out with about 4 or 5 other people, the researchers, this and that, to look at health, different leading edge health technologies and things that are going on. So I met James. He'd just done a documentary on divers, those that can go underneath without a tank. They can go at deep levels where nobody should be able to do that and hold their breath for like 10, 12 minutes. That's supposed to be impossible, but they've taught themselves that. So he started learning about breath at that point. So when he brought this book in, it was great. The 3 points are, if you don't breathe correctly, it's going to affect you mentally and physically. That's number 1. Number 2 is, how do you breathe correctly? And I've let everybody get into the book to know that, but we're not breathing correctly from our diaphragm. I have patients I have for 20 years, have taught them how to breathe correctly, not this shallow breath up in here, but using diaphragmatic breathing. Very important in pain management. When I have patients with cancer pain and morphine isn't touching it, guess what helps? The right type of breathing. It's that powerful. So teaching the importance of it. And then the third would be just that, again, a reminder that the human body is capable of so much when we're giving it what it needs, which is proper breathing, proper air and CO2, and taking out what it doesn't, which is detoxing all the bad things. And that means things you eat, things you're exposed to, and toxic people in your life. That's not in the book, but that's just my take. Third piece is that the basics, getting back to nature, getting back to what are the most important things we can do to be healthy. Breathing is one of them. We forget about it. We talk about diet and exercise, but what about the right type of breathing? And it's very important.
Right. And so you had at the beginning of this episode, you kind of talked about this breathing from the feet and then into the heart and all that. Could we maybe try that so that our listener could?
Sure, we can. I will give credit. That process was brought to light by my husband, Barry Goldstein, and he did it on some of my patients years and years ago, and I saw the benefit of it. So I've just kind of taken off on my take of his technique, but I will give him credit. But we can do that. We can do that right now.
Okay, that'd be amazing.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. All right. So first is just take a nice deep breath.
Okay. And I'm assuming if somebody is driving or, operating equipment or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Doing that.
In a safe, quiet place so they can look back at this later or listen later, right, to try it. But here, I'll take you through the process. But yes, we want you to be able to close your eyes and be in a peaceful place where you don't have too many interruptions. Okay. But the beauty of this is that you can do this very quickly anywhere. At work, if you have to go to the restroom and do it in a stall, you can do it. It's quick, it's easy. And this is what I took that contractor through that I talked about at the beginning. Simple, easy, but it really works. Okay. All right. So first we're going to close our eyes. And just notice our breath. Notice it going in and out. Now take a deep breath in, nice and slow. Breathe in. Hold it for a second and just let it flow out. Let it take its own time. We're going to do one more like that. Just breathe in deeply and slowly and out. Now, I want you to picture that breath when I tell you coming in through the bottom of your feet, traveling up through your legs and your abdominal area to your heart. So we're going to breathe in through the bottom of the feet. Picture it coming in. Breathe in all the way to the heart, and breathe out through the heart. Breathe out through the heart. We're going to do another one. Breathe in through the bottom of your feet and out through the heart, slowing the heart rate down. Another one. Breathe in through the bottom of the feet and out through your heart. Now picture the top of your head, and we're going to take a breath in through the top of the head, coming in through the head and out through the heart. Again, breathe in through the top of the head, breathe in that air and out through your heart. And breathe in through your head and out through your heart. Now stay with the heart. Breathe in through your heart and out through your heart. Two more. Take your time. In through your heart and out through your heart. Last one on your own. Now stay there. Stay in this peaceful place. No judgment. Just be for just a few seconds here. And open your eyes and realize that the body is capable of infinite healing when we're giving it love, when we're giving it breath. And you can play off of this exercise. You can think about colors, what it feels like. You can hear sounds. You can play in different ways of doing it. But by thinking about your bottom of your feet, you're grounding yourself. And by thinking about the top of your head, it's allowing more of a spiritual connection or a balancing of the brain chemistry. And then when we focus on the heart, that's allowing the heart to come to a coherent, which means it's the same beat, same pattern, same wavelength. It's not chaotic. Brain waves and heart work together. And when you calm down one, the other one goes with it. So we do a lot of brain work, a lot of people doing brain work, but we forget about the heart's rhythm. And for me, it's heart-centeredness is just as important, if not more important, than brainwave work. And when you are allowing the body to just relax and trust it to do what it knows how to do, it's pretty amazing what it can do.
Wow, that was fabulous. Thank you so much for taking us through that. Really, really cool.
Sure.
I feel
Better with music, but
yeah. Sure, that makes sense. Yep, I didn't even think about that. That would have been cool.
Yeah. Well, but I will say that Barry and I are about to release. It's a guided meditation that I've done with him. His music is amazing, and as you know, he works with all the top leaders in the field for meditation, including Joe Dispenza and Neil Donald Walsh, and who I could keep naming, Daniel Lehman, those people. But is my guided meditation is a cellular symphony, and it's a guided into visualizing, hearing, and seeing the cells in your body going to areas for repair, and seeing it kind of along the line of a grid. And it's a little unique, very unique. And I can't wait for us to release that. And I'll send you a copy as soon as we're ready to release it.
I'm looking forward to that.
Pretty proud of that work. Yeah. Barry's music takes you there regardless, but mine allows the body, the mind to have a visual to ride along there and to guide. Pretty excited to get that launched.
That's amazing. Now, you mentioned earlier the Conversations with God book and how you can listen, you can receive messages, not just talk to God, but have a true conversation. It goes back and forth.
That's right.
What would be an example of a powerful conversation you've had with God?
Yeah. So Neil hears God's voice back. I don't hear voices, but I get very clear messages when I'm in the state. It's usually through different animals that I've associated with people that I want to connect to. My mother, who has passed, comes at the most profound times with little, and they're always female. The male hummingbirds are the colorful ones. The big ones, the brown ones, are the female. It's always a female hummingbird, and they will come right up to my face and hover right when I'm needing when I'm asking for clarification or support in my life. So I hear it, I feel it. My conversations are, I used to pray in a traditional sense of prayer. I still do sometimes. I do. But now I meditate to get to the place where I'm just floating out there in this, not expecting anything. When you expect or want or desire something to happen, that's when it's probably not going to happen. If you're just allowing yourself to get to that state where you're in this peaceful, connected to the universe, to God, to source, Buddha, whatever the belief system is, when you're just allowing that, and you're doing a meditation process that in some cases, like mine, I need to do something that gets my brain out of the way. To say to me, go do transcendental meditation, shut off your brain and don't think about a pink elephant. All I'm going to do is think about a pink elephant, right? But if I'm doing these active type meditations that work for me and for people with very busy, active minds, that allows me to get the vagus nerve involved. There's all kinds of physical things that happen, but it allows me to all of a sudden, poof, I'm there. I was just doing my meditation work and all of a sudden I'm there. That's when the messages come. That's when I know. And I also am a lucid dreamer. I always have been. When I heard about many, many years ago, Edgar Cayce, I thought, oh, good, now I can talk about it. I'm not the only one. So if I have a problem, something I'm concerned about, it could be biochemistry, it could be something like that. If I go to sleep at night with something on my mind that I want to work through, it's very likely that it will be worked through in my dreams. And I have full conversations. My husband, Barry, by my side, people that I've been in cars with on business trips that they were telling me about a corporate problem and I fell asleep because I wasn't driving. And I had a whole conversation with them, worked it out, and I was not awake. Right? It didn't remember that conversation, but I can also get my dreams to change. So sometimes alarm will go off or Barry will say, it's time to get up. I say, wait just a minute. I need to finish this dream. And I can go back in and I can also tailor it. If it's going a place I don't want it to go, like into a scary place or something that I can literally direct my dreams. We all have ways that we can tap in and manipulate. We're all different. That doesn't mean something's wrong with you or you're not connected because you don't have lucid dreaming. That's just me. That's just me. So finding what it is, maybe it's music, maybe it's walking in nature, maybe you have to be by water. When I'm in the shower, I get messages, something about water. So now I had to buy those crayons and I have to write on the shower wall. So I don't have to jump out of the shower, dry myself off and try to get all this great information written down. So listening and just knowing that your messages will come in the way they need, and just being aware and paying attention to them instead of ignoring them. Oh, that intuition thing. We know that women's brain have a bigger area that literally allows intuition than men. Sorry, but it's true. It's just a physical thing. But, knowing that we all have those messages, call it that gut feeling or that intuition, and like, oh, I should have listened to that. Those are all messages from wherever, whatever you believe, but they're there if we're open to listen to them. And I'm very lucky to have Dr. Bill Tiller, who was on one of the people interviewed on What the Bleep Do We Know. He was emeritus. He taught physics at Stanford, head of the department for 40 years. He's still emeritus professor. I do a lot with energy medicine, with frequency, with cold lasers, this and that. So I've worked in that field for a long time. And Bill was my mentor. But now he will, from a science standpoint, run circles around anybody in the hard science world. Really well done science, right? But he's also one of the most spiritual people. He and his wife had meditated. We just lost Jean, his wife, but they meditated together for 60 years every day. And what's interesting, and you'll love this, is that they could change the pH of water. When a group of meditators would get together that were trained, and they would synchronize with one another, they would be coherent, they could change the pH of water. Well, what does that mean? That means it's very difficult to do. Physically, very difficult to make the pH of water change, but they could do it for meditation. And they found out that it didn't have to be in the same room. It could be across the world. His real science, his real scientific instrumentation proved it. But this is the point, is that they could move it. But then he said, well, I want to really be able to measure it. We should be able to make it exact or make it move more. And it was his sweet wife that was not the science that said, maybe when you meditate on the exact number that you want. And that's when it moved to the exact number. So this means be precise in what you're asking or what you're thinking about or what you're contemplating. Now, oh, I want to feel better. Be precise. The more precise you are, the more precise the answers may be, and the more precise that your body may do what you're wanting it to do, instead of just help me, I don't feel good. What doesn't feel good and why?
Yeah, that precision is very important. If you ask a poor quality question of your guides or of your therapist, right? So it could be a spiritual guide that's non-physical, or it could be your therapist you're in the office with, in their office, and you ask poor quality questions, you're going to get not the answers that you need. And also, if you're willing to take a risk and put yourself out there with greater precision, a lot more benefit comes to you and to others. A great example of that, I'm in a mastermind with 7 other entrepreneur guys, and we're all reading the book You Were Born for This together as part of it's kind of like a book study group / mastermind. So the book You Were Born for This by Bruce Wilkinson is all about how to bring and deliver everyday miracles. And part of that is putting yourself out there. First of all, being willing to deliver miracles. So like Isaiah in the book of Isaiah, he was at the feet of God, and it was kind of like a board meeting sort of situation up in the heavens. Like, okay, I need one of you angels to go and do this, and then we got this issue here. Yeah, and there's Isaiah, and he's like, hey, here I am. Send me, right? Send me. And so if you ask, you will get. And so I do that a lot. I say, here I am, God, send me. And the most amazing things show up. But yeah, you got to be precise and put yourself out there. And so one of the other guys in this group, he told us about how he felt nudged to offer a pretty large tip to the waitress at a restaurant that they were at, him and his family. And it wasn't just a large tip, it was $107 tip. Not 108, not 109, 107.
Yeah.
And so he's like to the woman, how does $107 tip sound to you? And she just started sobbing. She showed the text message from her mom that said, I need the medicine for my whatever, and it's $107. Can you pay for it? And she couldn't. Now she could. $107, right? So what are the odds? This is beautiful, and this is how the universe works if you're open to it. I mean, it's how the universe works anyways, but you don't see it, you got your blinders on if you believe that there's nothing to the spiritual realm and nothing other than the tangibility of what you can taste, smell, hear, and feel.
Those synchronicities we think are not. Bill Tiller, Dr. Bill, always told me, he said, all your answers are right there in front of you. They're literally right there if you're in the state to do it. And again, in the morning is the best time, and before you go to bed at night. Those are great times to be able to tap in to say, what is right in front of me? What answers are already there? Some may come in different ways like that. You get a message and it's 107, or, somebody's license plate says 444. And that means something in that moment to you. That's a profound message. They're all around us. They're the jokes. And I'm terrible at jokes, but there was one about, God sending messages. There was a flashing, billboard on the, going by it. And I'm sorry, most people have probably heard that joke, but everything that God or spirit could do to give a message was there, but couldn't see it. And had to come in a different way. So it's comforting to know that we are all connected to one another, to the universe, to source, to God, we are all connected to this beautiful, beautiful energy. And we just need to believe and let go and not expect, it comes at the strangest times if you're open. But if you really are needing something specific, that's when you want to say, I want to be very specific in what I need help with. That precise question or precise work that you're doing. I want to work on this part of my body in this area. I want to take I want to take the molecules there that are going to heal it there. That's part of what my guided is about. Let's be precise with some things, but other times, be open. It's right there in front of us. The answers are right there.
Yeah, so true. And I'm just in awe of how miraculous and synchronous and serendipitous life is. It seems more like a simulation than anything. It's wild. It's really wild. Now, some people are full-blown psychic. Now, I understand that we're all psychic. Right. I'm getting that, and I didn't know that before. Even just last year, I didn't understand that we are all psychic. But some people are born with a great deal of psychic ability. They just kind of are a walk-in, right? And then there are others who have to do the hard yards to start to tune in and open the third eye and start getting the clairvoyance, the clairaudience or whatever. And maybe it's just hunches or intuitive hits, but they never hear the voice that's not theirs. Or maybe it sounds like theirs. This is an interesting thing that I've discovered, is that it can be their sounding voice, but it's not them. Mm-hmm. You are very well respected in the medical and science community. And, we just so briefly touched on some of the science aspects, like the hyperbaric oxygen and the sugar and glutamate, working with oncologists and CBT and cold lasers and all that sort of science stuff is also very legit.
Yes. I'm very heady. I'm a scientist. I'm a researcher, and I conduct and design clinical trials. So I've got a left brain that stores a lot of encyclopedic information about a lot of things. And I'm about bringing leading edge therapies here, even if they're not authorized yet. If they're safe and effective, then I'm bringing some of those to my people that I work with in oncology or even professional athletes. It doesn't matter. It's that I love the science. I love that side of it. But science and spirituality are not far apart. They're the same. And why wouldn't you bridge the two? That's the best medicine right there.
Yeah. This is prescription for life, really.
That's right. That's
for
right.
a meaningful and powerful, well-lived life.
Right, right. So it's that prescription for health is one of the taglines. That's the name of my supplement line and these other things. But it really is a prescription for health. And that includes lots of things, not just those supplements that I utilize. It's the prescription is all the above of everything that we're talking about today. That's the true prescription.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Donese, this was so fun and so enlightening and inspiring and informative. How do our listeners go to, learn from you, work with you, buy your supplements, all that sort of stuff?
Well, I do have a website, drwarden.com, which you're going to get a hold of soon to optimize it so people can find it. Right now, my patients and clients use it. drworden.com. The office number is 480-588-2233. And I work with people from all over the world. You don't have to be in Arizona to be a patient. I can do everything except a physical exam on you. And whatever I think needs to be done, I'm going to make sure your docs back home are doing it for you. So I love still patient care and research, but I'm doing more education and love the webinars and seminars and retreats because that's person to person. And it's unique to be able to work that way.
So, well, thank you so much, Donese. And thank you, listener, for being open enough to hear the whole episode and not be like, no, this is too weird for me, because life actually is kind of weird. It's magical weird, though, not creepy weird. Okay, we'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.